It was just, I couldn't even try. I'd been so friendly and professional to that moment.
That was my fault because I just busted out laughing first.
Oh, I mean, I did right with you. I mean, I was just like, I can't deal with that.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
This is Brittany Haig from Thomas I Group in Atlanta, Georgia, and you're listening to Help Me with HIPAA podcast.
Thank you for that intro. I'm David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs and Security First IT, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Carden. Good morning, Donna.
Good morning, David.
I'm glad to hear you made it through your ordeal.
Yeah, it was a tough week last week for me. And we had to skip recording because I could not sit up.
Yeah.
So, I had a tooth pulled. A lot of things happened. Yeah. A fractured root is not a pleasant moment.
Yeah. I felt the frustration come through the email when Carla sent me the email that says, "No way in hell she's recording tomorrow."
Well, that was the day I was throwing up because we found that I had hit my limit of ibuprofen that my body would allow me to take because I'd had this toothache for a while before I gave in and went to the dentist. It's surprising. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I hit my limit on ibuprofen and I was in a ball throwing up all day. When I had to follow up, I called the nurse at the dentist office and I'm like, yeah, it was really bad. She goes, I know. I was on the phone listening to you throw up.
Wow.
I apologize for that.
Yep. So anyway, it's a better week for you.
Yeah.
Not so much a better week for other people.
No, it has not been.
So as we're recording this, I mean, not that we don't have enough to deal with, like the whole global pandemic corona thing. And then of course it's spiking again in certain areas. And, then we got the economic mess and even some of the places that are opening up are now shutting back down.
I know.
And then, you throw in all the social unrest that's starting to happen. And it's like, I don't have time for HIPAA right now. I don't have time for security and privacy. And that's exactly what the criminals hope for. Yeah.
That's what, it's a distraction that they're not having to create. So they love it.
I know.
All they have to do is a small distraction on top of all the crazy distractions. I mean, a global pandemic, global economic fallout from shutting down because of the pandemic, global social unrest. I mean, we haven't seen ever. I'm just waiting for some, you have to assume at this point that at any day now, another thing will fall from the sky.
Yep. So I used to think if I had a time machine, I'd, travel forward in the future, but now I think I might just go back to the 80s.
I know. But then you'd just be horrified by the hair and the
Yeah, but we didn't know how bad it was back then, so it's okay.
Get your mullet on.
Yeah. It's like my parents used to say, that's back when music was good. Of course, they were talking about the 60s.
Exactly.
And now we're talking about the 80s that way.
Yeah. My parents talked about the 50s, and Carla's parents talk about the 40s. And, personally, it's one of those things where maybe if I go forward, I'll know that I can come back and do something.
So I just want to know how bad it gets.
I just want to know where to live. So yeah, it's crazy out there, but what that means is we're all distracted.
Yep. And if nobody's watching the hen house,
the fox is in the hen house.
Yep. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Nobody watching the hen house, or the fox being in the hen house, or both?
It's probably going to be a little bit of both. It's kind of one of those smorgasbord of things.
Yeah,
that we'll be talking about. And for all you people who like the cybersecurity, privacy conversations we have, there's going to be a lot of that. So not super focused on necessarily HIPAA in this one, but there's going to be a lot of stuff around privacy and security and what's going on in the world today.
Yeah.
A lot of craziness. But anyway, before we do that, let's talk about the 2020 HIPAA Boot Camp, the COVID session.
HIPAA Boot Camp.
Yeah. So I do wonder is, by the time we get there, which is August 18, 19, and 20, are we still going to be talking about COVID?
Oh, yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah. COVID's with us till 2021, at least.
Yeah, maybe longer.
Yeah. The year of COVID is what 2020 will be.
But, as people often do, we change the name of things. And I don't know about in your neck of the woods, but around here, it's just called the Rona.
Well, COVID isn't even the right name for it, COVID, you have to say 19.
Yeah.
Because it's the one discovered in 2019.
Yep. So, somebody told me the other day they wasn't feeling good. I told them they had COVID-20. But, around here is the Rona.
The Rona.
Do you have the Rona?
Oh. Well, I can tell you, it's definitely spreading. I mean, we have clients who they're taking all these precautions to bring people back to work. And I mean, they check your temperature when you get there. They're running tests. They're doing all this stuff. And somebody shows up for work. They're tired, but how many people aren't tired when you get to work?
Yeah.
2 hours later, they're running 100 and something fever.
Yeah.
And
so I went to an event yesterday, and they wouldn't let you in the door until they, shot you with the thermometer thing,
Yeah.
And so I walk in, and like this lady grabs this handgun looking thing and points it at me. And so what do? I throw my hands up. I'm like, don't shoot.
Of course you do.
And I was like, if you do want to pat me down, just ask.
I like that. That's what you said. I don't. You do.
Yeah, I said, just be slow with it. That's all I ask.
Oh, you're so wrong.
And so she was laughing so hard that she ended up having to have somebody else do the temperature scan because I think I just messed her all up. She's like, I'm not even touching this one. So
yeah, I'm not dealing with him. Somebody else deal with him.
Yeah,
that's what I say.
Yeah, I don't want to be sued.
So our COVID, we're not going to be taking your temperature because you're going to be in your own little world. But we're all going to be in a virtual world together. We're going to try to build a virtual world. So that you're hanging out with us for 3 days. It's not, I come into the meeting and I go out of the meeting. It's you're in the meeting.
Yeah.
As if you're there. So you're going to hear all of our stupid stuff and we're going to hear yours.
Yeah. You don't even know this yet, Donna, but I ordered a bunch more equipment that we need for this. So.
Uh-oh.
Because a lot of this stuff's, on back order. So I said, I better get this stuff now. So, yeah. Got a bunch
I can't wait to see what that is.
I was like, if the more buttons it has, the more I want it. So,
yeah. And if you had an excuse, you might as well do it.
Yeah. Like I need a reason to buy technology. But anyway, August 18, 19, 20, online version, you can go to thehippabootcamp.com. And you can get all the details there. And we still have the early bird special going.
Yeah. And if you had any problems with the website this past week, please pretend you never saw those and go again now. Let's just not talk about that, right, David?
Yeah. Yeah. We had a little issue
with
the website.
Fixed.
It is fixed. Mm-hmm. So anyway.
Yes, good times are here again with the HIPAA Boot Camp website. So go there, register, get more information. You have any questions, let us know. We're really looking forward to it. And we've already gotten our minimum seats. So that's the good news. But that means over half the seats we're going to allow are gone. Mm-hmm. So if you're interested, get now while the getting's good, as they say.
Yep. Yeah. Or they'll be emailing us going, when's the next one?
2021.
Yep. When COVID-20 comes out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's don't go there. All right.
Yep. So we're going to jump to a couple of listener emails first. But before we do that, let's hear a word from our sponsors.
Are you frustrated with your current IT provider? Are you sure you're getting the security and protection you need? Are you putting your patients and your practice at risk?
If you're in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, give Security First IT a call to learn more about how they can protect your patients, your practice, and your bottom line. Find them online at securityfirstit.com or call 980-288-5100.
The number of medical practices that think they're HIPAA compliant is pretty staggering. Effective privacy and security are an ongoing process, not a checklist. And that's why at Cardin, they don't just assess your situation and leave you with a report, but they work with you all along the way. Call Cardin today at 678-292-5001 or visit them on the web at cardinhq.com. Aren't your patients worth it? Alrighty, we're back. So let's get into some listener emails because I always love listener emails.
Yeah, and I have to apologize to Jack, and I'm not going to point out Jack's name or the company because there's some specific questions he's asking about his company.
Oh, come on.
He sent this in 10 days ago, and, well, I had a tooth, and there's a lot that's happened since the time Jack sent me this. And now. So, I apologize. I will be replying to your email, but we do try to cover this and this is very interesting. So, of course, number one, love your podcast and listen to every one of them. Thank you, Jack.
Yeah.
You know, we appreciate that. I spoke with some listeners this week and they were thanking us for what we do for the industry. And so shout out to Jeff and you know, that lady Amanda that came all the way from Washington to the boot camp. We like her.
Yeah. We used to join people on their commute to the office, and now we just join them on their commute to the room down the hall.
Or wherever it is. So, but we appreciate you out there listening. We know everything's changed, and you could listen to other madness, but we're better than the madness, really.
Absolutely.
So, but thank you for listening and reaching out. But second, he works for, I'm going to try to make sure that we keep this as easy as possible here. He works for a company that does, that's self-insured. And a lot of people are that.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're self-insured, technically that makes you a covered entity. You are your own insurance plan.
Right.
And that means that you need to carve that section of your business out and isolate it from all your other business and make that a covered entity. You are a health plan. What most people do is they outsource that to a third party, though, to make it easier.
Right.
But you do need to treat, because you're managing claims, you're doing all this other stuff, unless you're doing everything on paper, which I doubt you are. So his concern is that, you know, that he, like our company, is a covered entity because we're self-insured. And we also supply services, we'll say, into the healthcare vertical. So in the role of the services we supply, we're also considered a business associate. Okay, so they're both a covered entity and a business associate. That's why I think this is interesting, because we know that to be true, right? You and I do. Now, I'm sure there's some variables that may, you know, nothing's cut in stone unless we're actually in there. However, based on what he's stating and what we know, yes, he believes they're a covered entity because of the health plan and a business associate because of the services they provide. Based on what we know, he is correct. Apparently, the company says they're not a covered entity, and that's interesting. So we'll move on from that. And he says that he's given them documentation. And now, because of the whole COVID thing, and it's a large company, obviously, if you're self-insured, you're a fairly large-sized company, they've created a portal that they want all the employees to log into, and it's kind of like a COVID screening. So they want to know about your temperature. They want to know about, you know, he gave me a link to it. I have checked it out, and it's collecting for the company, who is a covered entity, Have you had close contact with anybody? Have you had a fever? And then any flu-like symptoms, any of these other things. And then, then because they say it's kept confidential and shared internally on a need-to-know basis, unless required or advised to be disclosed. I'm sorry. You agree to consent. This organization is related corporations collecting, using, and disclosing this information as required, advised, and directed by federal, state, or local government authorities. So they're making them do this and requiring them to say, I certify the above information is true and I consent to being used as specified. The question is, there's no BAA with the company that's running the screening form, the online safety form, and there seems to be no concern. So you fill in your company name, the first name, the last name, and your phone number is required.
Okay.
So they know everything about you, and they're collecting healthcare information on behalf of the company that is a covered entity. And his question is, should he be concerned?
Yes.
I agree. And I think he says that the company told him that because of the pandemic, their HIPAA has some allowances to put something like this in place.
Oh, shit.
I would say that what you need to do is call your local OCR office and ask them. They're there for questions. And ask them if this is acceptable at all. Personally, my opinion is you're in a very, very gray area that I think only you created, is what I would say to the people at the company. But I would recommend that Jack, and there's regional numbers, and you can just call up the office and say, I need some help understanding what I'm supposed to do. And you don't have to disclose who you are. You can disclose exactly the way that I've disclosed it here. And or you could come back to me and we'll work that out together, how you could access OCR. But I would highly recommend you go straight to them, ask them what you need to know. And trust me, they're not looking for more cases because the cases are coming to them as fast as they can deal with them, and they don't have enough people already. And they tell us that right away when they come in and talk with our folks at the boot camp, which, by the way, we're still working on doing for the virtual because it's a whole new world and approvals are different. But that being said, I highly recommend that somebody, whether it be you or the people that are in charge of the self-insured plan, because that's the key there. If you weren't self-insured, a lot of things would be different. So that's what I recommend. Do you have anything to add, David? Because this was tricky.
No, I don't have anything to add. I mean, I think you covered all the bases, but I would definitely be worried about it, and I would not drop the ball. I would push it until something got done, because I'm assuming Jack is an employee there. So his health information is at risk just like everybody else's is.
Well, and they think they're not a covered entity. There's another problem.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that it says that, I'm assuming he gave them the documentation. Somehow they got documentation provided that shows they're a covered entity, and they're still like, nah, we don't think so. Maybe next time, but not this time.
Yeah, but it sounds like we would say that they are, based on what we know. Without more detail. That's a fact, Jack.
Yup. And I imagine that, even if they were just a BA, I imagine there's still a bunch of issues there that they're ignoring with that too. Yeah.
I would wager that if these things are normal, then there's a lot more going on.
Yeah, I would think so too.
And another thing, not a listener email, it would be one that if I were a listener, would send in to us about what I experienced myself And we're moving banks, we're changing banks. A lot of people are going to be doing that because of the problems people had with their banks getting these small business loans, the PPP, the EIDL, all those things. We're moving, not necessarily for that, for other reasons. But in that, of course, when you change banks, you've got to do all these account number things. I go to the company that we got our merchant account through, and now they are a new company, i.e. bought. And I go through all of the stuff to find my information so that I can supply this new bank account to them. And finally, first of all, it took way too long. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. Finally find that they want me to fill out a form. They give me a PDF. They want me to fill it out with my company name, the routing number of the new bank account, the account number of the new bank account, and some other verifiable information. And, my signature and all that stuff. Not a problem. Until it says, email it to blah, 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 blah. Or fax it to this number. I thought what? Oh, no. I mean, I got the sense to know, but how many of your clients may be doing this and they're putting it in their email, so now it sits in their email account waiting to get hacked, which we will talk about in a minute, and it sits in the company's email accounts waiting to get hacked, and it's got all that information on it. What?
Yeah. Well, you should have faxed it.
I faxed it. But here's the thing. If my bank account was cleaned out, because I did that because I assume that the financial institution knows what they're doing when they tell me to do this. If someone that was not educated like me on this particular issue, I would fall for it. And it's almost like they're setting them up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
So I pull the fact that the PCI was 4.2, I think, or whatever. One of those PCI requirements says, like in a lot of discussion, never, ever, ever use plain email, if you will, to send cardholder data. And I send that to them saying that you really shouldn't do this. And I had the sense to fax it, but I'd like to know, is this an oversight? And if so, what do you plan to do to make sure that people who have done this are protected? Then I got a response. Oh, no, you didn't. OMG, because the response came and said, our email is secure.
What's your problem?
Our email is secure. If you're uncomfortable, fax it.
That's not a tactful response.
I know. I'm having my coffee. I almost spit coffee out when I read it. It's like, this is your response? You have a customer who's concerned about security, who clearly knows enough to reference PCI, a very specific standard, and that's your response?
Yeah. When somebody starts, dropping in the standards, you probably should pay attention.
Yeah. Especially when it's in context properly, instead of you're violating PCI. No, it's this specific item that I'm talking about. So I reply, it's not that I'm uncomfortable. It's that this does not meet any acceptable industry standard. And I have requested that they forward it to the CIO, CISO, security, whatever, compliant. I want a response from somebody else. So I'm sure that when that gets back to support, they're going to bury it. So now I've been searching, and I will be making a phone call to a number I found because I can't let this go.
No.
I mean, I shouldn't. It's my job, and it's my information that's at risk. What else is going on? Just like we just talked about. What else is going on? So I'm not naming names, but if I don't get adequate response, I might name names.
I say name names. And then send them a copy of the podcast.
Yeah, well, we do say that. Look, do you know who, that I have a platform? I could name names. We've only done it like one other time in any less than positive way. Anyway, so there you go. That's another thing going on. Make sure that you teach people in your accounting department these kinds of things, because look what could have happened. What would happen if I sent that and then it's sitting in my email account and I don't have 2FA and a 20 character password and, all these alerts if anybody, if I didn't have all of that, what would happen when somebody hacked that account? Because we know that's going on everywhere.
Yeah. Well, they're not concerned. They're like, well, you send it to us.
I know. Not my problem.
Yeah. It's only my problem to secure my side. I don't care about your side.
Yeah. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute, about financial information that's just flying around in unsecured email, and juxtapositioned, there's my word of the day, juxtapose the information flying in email with the number of phishing attacks that are going on and the number of email accounts that are being hacked or compromised. Let's call them compromised. BEC. So there you go, David. I had to, there's my, at least for now, my vent.
You get it off your chest?
Maybe.
All right. So that brings us into some other crazy stuff.
Yes.
So,
yeah. So it's not just cybersecurity that we're having to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
And this, okay, so two things came up on this. So a tornado hits a building that houses medical records and blew them like whoosh, into the wind. That's a data breach that's been reported. So everybody's like, well, I have all of my papers secured. And, we've had clients that had paper records stored in a storage facility and, locked and multiple keys and and another storage thing caught on fire. Another long story. But here's paper that you think is secured, yet it's doused in water when they're putting out the fire because it's next door. So anyway, so you got that, and then you got a medical records company that apparently went out of business.
Oh, this is always good.
And all of the records they had just ended up in a dumpster.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have more companies, unfortunately, with the economic situation that COVID has brought us. I'm sorry, the Rona has brought us. We're going to have more cases of companies that may go out of business that are your business associates that have your records. Have you made sure you know what will happen if any of those companies were to go under? You better go looking for your information.
Mm-hmm.
So just crazy stuff. And then there's a story about North Korea's hacking group, Lazarus. Everybody assumed, you can't prove anything, but it's proven enough that it's assumed in the cyber world that they're planning a massive attack somehow. Not just us, but the US, the UK, Japan, Singapore, India, and South Korea. And remember, they just blew up a building where they met to be happy, to negotiate with South Korea. So they've just said, we're not negotiating with anybody. And now their hackers are about to cut loose. That's crazy. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yep.
And you just ran into, another thing that everybody's going to be doing now is looking to save money.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of another scary aspect of what's going on, because as people start looking at how can I save money, they're going to start looking at things that, shall we say, they don't see or feel as much, which often is security and cybersecurity. And so,
if it's working, you don't know it's there.
Right. I mean, that's the whole thing about security is it kind of, especially cybersecurity, it's kind of there and it's doing its job. And, unless you have a company that's kind of showing you what it's doing, you really don't know that it's there. And that's kind of the point. But one of the things that that we're dealing with in our company that I know a lot of other MSPs are is people are coming to them and they're saying, okay, is there any way we can cut costs? And so we're working with a few of our clients that are looking to cut costs. And of course, the conversation we have is cutting costs means you have to cut service, but I would caution you not to cut cybersecurity services. But one of the interesting things that came out of one this past week is that this client was going out and getting other quotes just to see, kind of where they were paying us versus paying somebody else. And the pricing is all over the place, as you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
And, and I was, told them, look, I'll help you understand what you have versus what they're quoting you, because there's a lot of tricks in the industry about how they do this sales process. And quite frankly, I don't like many of them. And I don't talk bad about a company, but I will talk bad about their process, because I just completely disagree with how some of these people will try to scare you into doing something or try to point out something that you're doing as if it's wrong. And so this is what happened in this case, where a company said, I'm sorry, Mr. Medical Practice, but you are using G Suite, and G Suite is not secure, and you can't use it for HIPAA compliance. So you need to move to Microsoft Office 365. And I was like, seriously? I mean, this is something that, number one, it's kind of a toss-up. Like, one week, I think Google's more secure than Microsoft, and then maybe the next week, Microsoft's more secure than Google. And they're all going to find vulnerabilities. Like, every single week, I see at least one of the two has a security vulnerability, and they patch it. So it's not a matter of, is this one more secure? Well, it might be today. I don't know. But, you can't find the 100% security. It's always secured. It's never insecure. This doesn't exist. It's just the nature of software, and especially the nature of online software. And so aside from that, it was the whole thing about HIPAA. And I'm like, somebody probably, two things. One is they probably don't offer it, nor do they support it. So it's a sales conversation, and they're just using this as a tactic to say, we're going to move you to Microsoft because you're on Google. Personally, I don't care which one they're on, because we'll sell both. It's whatever one works best for them. But the other side of it is somebody probably read somewhere that Gmail is not HIPAA compliant, the free version, and they just assume that none of it is.
Oh, it's the same kind of stuff like the guy who told me that providing sheets for a bed is a HIPAA violation. It's like, let's blame HIPAA, and because this is more convenient for us, or flat out, I want you to use this tool, and I'm going to bash everything else as not being HIPAA compliant because I truly don't understand or don't care. Yeah.
And, I'm fortunate enough that we've used both. And, we were 100% Google Shop at one time. And then we went into doing both Google and Microsoft. And now we still do both. But internally, we've shifted to Microsoft for some other reasons. So I've got a lot of experience in both platforms. And it really comes down to a matter of preference. It's not a matter of security. It's not a matter of compliance. It's simply, does this platform work better for your needs? And that's it.
Yeah. And there's, you consider cost and feature and function and, a long list of things. It should be a business decision between those two tools, especially. And the number of times that I get people who will call me up and say, my IT people say I have to use Microsoft Office 365, which is almost always their thing. You must use this. And if you don't use this, you're not compliant. That is absolutely not going to be the case about any piece of technology.
Right. And here's the real caveat that people need to be concerned about more than anything. It's not whether or not you're on Microsoft or Google. It's whether or not the person that you have doing your IT work is going through the process of implementing those things that make it HIPAA compliant, because out of the box, neither platform is HIPAA compliant.
Yeah, many pieces of software. What is the term you coined a long time ago? It's not that it's a HIPAA compliant piece of software, but it can be used in a HIPAA compliant manner.
Yeah.
I remember when you said that, I'm like, hey, that was pretty good.
Yeah. So it's, it's, what do you want? HIPAA enabled, which means you can disable it. But yeah, I mean, you can't, and this is the thing about my fear with some of these companies is they say, we're just going to put you on Office 365, which is now called Microsoft 365. We're going to put you on that because it's HIPAA compliant, or we're going to put you on G Suite because it's HIPAA compliant. It doesn't matter, but there's more to it than that. They can't just put you on either platform and you be okay. They still have to go through the process of following the implementation to make it HIPAA compliant. And I think there's a lot of people that's dropped this ball there. That's the scary part, because then if I've told you as a salesperson, if I said you have to be on Microsoft to be HIPAA compliant, and then I sell it to you, that's not where it ends. And I feel like that's where it often does end.
Yeah.
And so now these companies that in good faith thought that they were being HIPAA compliant are not.
And David and I were in a conversation. We were in a conference call about a project that we're working on this week. And somebody said, what do you think about the companies that supply the HIPAA compliant badges? And we just, it's people that are vetting us to do a big project with them. But both of us just started laughing. I mean, we got nothing. It was just, I couldn't even try. I'd been so friendly and professional to that moment.
That was my fault because I just busted out laughing first.
Oh, I mean, I did right with you. I mean, I was just like, I can't deal with that.
Yeah.
But, it did make our point. It was very clear.
Yeah, I think they got the point quickly.
Yeah.
That and I honestly don't even know why they were asking. I don't know if they were asking because they were thinking about doing that, or they were asking because some of the other people in the industry
they're seeing others doing it and they're thinking about it, is what I bet.
Right. So yeah, when they asked us, we were like, no.
No. In fact, I was also interviewed for an article earlier this week, and they were like, what recommendations would you give providers looking for telehealth solutions? We want to stick with this. We want to keep doing telehealth, telemedicine, whatever you want to call it. When you're searching for solutions, what are some of the top things to look for? And I said, if it says guaranteed HIPAA compliant or 100% HIPAA compliant, or they have a certification, you don't want them. You just don't want them.
Yeah.
That would be my first red flag that security and privacy is not something they take very, 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 very seriously.
Right.
So anyway, you could, because note to self, just in case you haven't listened to that episode about our HIPAA certified discussion, there is a whole episode on that. If I wanted to, I could slap a HIPAA certified badge, make any one I wanted, and slap it on my website. Make it look official and all this stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
It doesn't, you cannot tell someone they're HIPAA compliant, period. If you are, it's not good.
No. And unfortunately, there are a bunch of people out there doing it. And some of these companies are rather large.
Yeah.
And they're out there throwing their little seals of approval around and compliance certifications and papers and plaques they hang on the wall. And it's like, geez, really?
Yeah. And it creates a false sense of security. Number one. Number two, it's one of those things that I would wager that would be borderline FTC stuff.
I got a good story for you. This came out of my meeting last night, where I was frisked. It was a Chamber of Commerce meeting. So all these other people there, businesses and all that. And I ran into this lady that I knew from a chiropractor's office. And so I said, like, what are you doing now? She's like, well, I'm with this different chiropractic office. I'm like, that's great. And who's doing your IT work? And they're like, well, we do our own. And I'm like, okay, fantastic. So you're not doing HIPAA then? she says, we have antivirus.
Bless her heart.
So I gave her my card and I said, I'll be more than happy to talk to the doctor for free. Just have him call me. But there's a lot you don't know.
Yeah. And I'm going to do this, it's like my deal with the, I want you to do it correctly. It's not, I'm trying to sell my services, or I want you to protect my information. I want you to protect all your patients and all your business partners. I want you to do this because it's the right thing to do. So anyway, that takes us on to some other things. And we have a whole little section on, and this is because I was overstimulated with the different topics. This is why we're doing this episode, because I was overstimulated. And when that happens, all processing shuts down. So we have some work from home alerts. And frankly, I don't know how to manage this or deal with this. I just know it's more than likely a problem for a vast number of people. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
One of the three of these things we're going to go through is happening with someone that is connecting to your network.
Yeah.
It's whether or not they're taken care of.
And the sad thing is, when all these people working from home, is I doubt anybody said, I need like an inventory of what your network looks like and computer you're on so that we can understand, what you're having to deal with from a security standpoint.
Well, nobody had time to do that during the whole shutdown process. But the bigger issue is now you do have time to try to figure this out. And, do you have the people and the resources? It's going to be essential. And the fact that, what was it that you said when we were talking about this one, including it? And you said, well, Johnny down the street put my router in. And
little Johnny.
Yeah, there you go.
Little Johnny, the computer whiz.
Yeah, I got a guy, I always love the folks. Just because you work in IT does not make you a security expert.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you're good at computers does not mean you understand secure networking. It means you may understand networking, but there are a ton of people that can make a network work that have no idea how to secure it.
Yeah. Yeah, we're seeing a big problem with that just within the MSP community right now, because there's a big push to switch from being a MSP to an MSSP and take on more and more cybersecurity roles. Well, the problem is most MSPs don't know a whole lot about that, and so they're trying to outsource that as fast as they can. But that comes at a big cost, not just financial cost, but the cost of not knowing what you're selling and what you're doing and how you're going to respond to security incidents. And I think there's a big mess coming because of that. But we'll see.
Yes. Who knows? We can only, but sometimes we're telling a story. Sometimes we're guessing.
Yeah. So anyway, working from home. So we
Yes.
found out this week that poor D-Link and poor Netgear.
Yeah.
If you have either one of those, you have the issues.
If you have particularly an older one, meaning you didn't just buy it brand new, not you bought it off of eBay.
Yeah.
Because these things last forever.
Oh, yeah.
And people think, it's just, they think it's like plugging in a radio,
Yeah.
and it's not.
Yeah. It's like you have to keep the firmware updated. And people are like, what do you mean firmware? What is that? How do I get to it? It's like, where's your password for your router? You're like, I never had a password. I'm like, no, you had to have a password.
Well, no, there's a default. And let me show you how hard that is. Let me just Google this model, what's Netgear default password?
Yeah.
And boom, I'm in. And look at what all I can see and do.
Yeah.
So anyway, two different companies that make consumer internet routers, so D-Link and Netgear, have critical bugs in multiple models. And the Netgear one actually allows a full takeover of the router.
Ooh, that's not good.
Yeah. That's really not good at all. So if you are sitting at home and you don't know anything about your router, you better, if it says D-Link or Netgear, we'll have links to these articles and you can just look and see if your model is mentioned, is all I can offer. And if it is, somebody needs to upgrade that thing or you need to just go get a new one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I'm saying.
And if you're a business and you're running either of these brands, you probably need a consultation. Give me a call.
That's right.
These are not for business use.
David is in Charlotte, but he can do remote consultations, virtual consultations. You just walk around showing him pictures of stuff and he'll be like, wait, back up.
Yeah, I mean, we're even doing that with people that are local now.
I know, right? So it just makes you be able to, have a larger footprint. And then one other thing is Adobe, which Adobe products are resource hogs. So I have a hard time being a huge fan. An out-of-band update means, there's a normal update schedule that most software companies follow.
Mm-hmm.
We always know about Patch Tuesday, don't we, David?
Oh, yeah. Followed by, Go Nuts Wednesday.
So that's Microsoft's thing. And Adobe patched 18 critical flaws outside of that normal cadence.
Ooh.
That's big when that happens.
Yeah.
So you got Adobe doing that. We've got phishing campaigns left and right. They're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't think that it's happening, then that means you've probably already been caught.
Yeah.
Because, they're sending out fake data breach notifications.
I know.
With malware attached. There was one that business partner of mine, he had gotten, and he shared it with me. And it says that one of the groups that he works with, that they do have as a client, has engaged this company that is sending the email to review their open accounts. And to complete this review, we need all the vendors to provide a current statement of account detailing open invoices, balances, returns or credits, and we're requesting an updated W-9 and your company's DBA information. And proceeds to say, okay, attach all of your statements, and we want to know what your DBA is, your client name. People don't understand that a W-9 form that a business sends is the social security number of your business. An EIN number is not something you just throw around. But that's what they're wanting you to do in an email. Now, he looks at it and he thinks, man, that's odd. But it looked really, really good. He sent it to me. It looks good. So he decided, well, you know what? Let me try sending something to this email address. And it bounces back and says, that person isn't there. So then he directly reaches out to the person they work with, and they're like, oh, no, that's not us. So somebody's trying to take over all these businesses. How many businesses do you think would be taken over? Couple that with, I've hacked their email, and I have the freaking form from the merchant people.
And we're back.
So anyway, there's tons of phishing going on. We've had clients falling for things. There's a info security guy who runs these, honeypots, which is, they sit there and wait to get attacked. They're watching for the attack so they can see how they work. And notices that there's a phishing attack that is broken. So the attack they're intending is broken and not working. But because it's broken, it accidentally finds a 0 day in Microsoft, in Outlook.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's that bad. It's like roll the dice. It's going to be mess. We have the largest breach reported so far this year. BJC Health System in Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
I know those guys. Been to many of their facilities doing work. But they announced an incident involving an email account compromised. It's not the largest, it's the third largest this year. 288,000 people from an email account that was compromised for a very long time.
Mm.
So they send these phishing campaigns to get access to the email accounts. And once they have a list of email addresses, then they can say, so-and-so told me, and now they're using your email account and send it. So like the one that my business partner saw, they were able to drop enough names that it looked real because they probably gotten somebody's email account. So now share about your crazy email thing where they tried to tell you.
I talked to you about so many. You have to remind me.
The CC.
Oh, yeah. So I was registered for a conference this fall and it got canceled. And so the company sent out the notification to everybody that the conference was canceled. The problem is every single person that was registered for the conference, they put it in the CC part of the email. So everybody registered for the conference got everybody else's email address in that one email. And
it's painful.
And there was a lot of people who were mad about it, and they were replying back. They were doing reply all, which is funny enough because now everybody's getting replies. So they would hit reply all, and they're like, remove me from your email list. I can't believe you did this. And, security doesn't matter to you and blah, blah, blah. And then this one guy, he replies back and goes, y'all just need to chill out, man. Like somebody made a mistake. That's all it is. Nobody on this list is going to email you. I'm like, really?
That's that. Like our email is secure if you're uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, it's like, first of all, I don't know that somebody on this list may not email me. But secondly, my email address is now in the inbox of 500 other people now.
And how many of those 500 people have fallen for a phishing attack where somebody else is collecting all the email addresses in there?
Exactly.
Statistical likelihood grows greatly by the exposure to that many people.
And the sad part about it, even more sad than everything I've said, is the guy. First of all, it's an IT conference, so everybody is IT people. So even the guy that's like, "It's no big deal, man," is an IT person.
So there it goes back to the just because you know this doesn't mean you know that.
Right.
Okay. And you know what? We've been ranting and we're almost out of time. And one very important thing that we need to bring up that we should have put at the top is a thing called Ripple 20.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. It's a thing that you don't want to try to understand unless you're technical. But what you need to know is, where we talk about the importance of supply chain and like the way things work. It's buried way into firmware with many, many vendors. It's like somebody sells this tiny little piece that allows this device to talk to the network. Little piece of software. Mm-hmm. And tons of people use that software. It's a big list of devices. In fact, a bunch of medical devices, and we're talking like millions of devices, millions,
right,
are all using this software that they have now found it's very, very sick.
It is exploitable.
It is not a good thing, because basically what it lets the attacker do is they have complete control of the device. Complete control. And if you're running, and we're talking like, when we say medical devices, it could be MRI machines, it could be the pumps for, everybody's favorite little, I've had surgery, let me hit the button. But insulin pumps and those kind of things. And it can even they can deactivate a backup battery. And I mean, they have complete control. It is very scary. And if you have any of those devices, have somebody asking questions. You want them to know about TREC, TRECK, TCP/IP code stack. Just that's it. It's just really, really, really embedded though. So you can't just ask some general person. Mm-hmm. You have to say, what are you doing about that TREC vulnerability that's way down in there? And if they don't know about it or they tell you it's not them, then you want documentation.
Right.
Because I mean, this is a Department of Homeland Security thing, and apparently this has been out there circling amongst the private discussions as everybody's been trying to figure out how to fix it, but the cat's out of the bag. So who knows, and who knows who's doing stuff. So get up in there. Do your inventory. Grab your inventory that we know you have of all your medical devices. And it's not just the medical devices. It's all of these devices, the IoT, the IOMT, the OC, all of these devices that aren't computers that are connecting to network to be like a computer.
Hmm.
So there you go.
I guess we'll just mention briefly as we close that there's also now a ransomware decryptor that actually encrypts. So
God, that's one.
Be careful. You're running around and let's say you get ransomware and you're like, oh, I know about these free decryptors I can get. Be careful. You may find out what dual encryption looks like.
Yeah, that they're going to encrypt. You have to get decrypted by them before you can get decrypted by the original people. So you've gotten hit twice by ransomware.
Yeah, and we know that typically a decryption process usually is not clean. No. So you can imagine how bad it is.
To do it twice?
Oh, yeah. It's like, dude, your data's gone.
Yeah, it's just gone. But here's the other thing is, people are paying. And we talked about it. Ransomware is growing rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these other things we just talked about ways to get in, they get in and they do all this stuff and then they launch ransomware, so they're already making a boatload of money. And the folks that are stealing the data and then leaking the data if you don't pay, that's going on. I mean, it's crazy out there, David. It's crazy.
Yeah, I saw an article the other day where I think the title of the article was something like small business pays ransomware ransom and here's why. And so the whole article was just, this is why we had to do it. It was cheaper to pay that, or, we didn't have good backups or whatever. It's all these like excuses. I mean, that's all I took from it. It's like, this is an excuse after an excuse after an excuse to say that it was better to pay than not.
Right.
But it all goes back to if you have a plan for when ransomware attacks, and you can't have a instant response plan that starts when the attack happens. Your instant response plan should have started months earlier, because that means you should already know I've got backups and these backups are tested. So I know that we have the ability to recover and we know what we're going to do when this thing happens. If you wait till the day you get hit and then start trying to figure things out, you're already screwed.
It's not pretty.
No. But
let's just say that there are multiple people that I've had to break some really bad news to. And they keep saying, we're going to have to get back to you. And I'm like, this is not looking good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyways.
It's true.
Now you know why I'm overstimulated.
I know. It's like, we don't want to be the bearer of more bad news, but here we are.
I know we should have planned a really good joke for the end, but I got nothing right now.
I know. It's like I'm wore out. Now I got to go check all these firmwares of IoT devices.
Oh, well, thanks everybody.
Yep. That is our show for today, folks. Remember to follow us and share us out on your favorite social media site, even TikTok.
No. Subscribe. Just subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe to our podcast or our YouTube channel. There's one there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We are starting to get a lot of traffic there.
Yep. So we don't have our pretty faces on there yet, but you can listen to the podcast. I'm trying to talk Donna into doing some videos and not the ones she did in college, but, hey, y'all watch this.
What are you talking about? That was like 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago. Yeah. You always know when you're around a group of friends and everybody starts pulling their cameras out. You're like, oh boy, something bad's going to happen. Anyway, remember, help us to spread the word and share your questions. So send those in. Any ideas you have about the podcast, send those in as well. And for Donna and myself, remember that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.